95% of the ocean remains unexplored. That figure is cited so frequently in popular science that it has lost most of its capacity to disturb, which is a problem. Because what it actually means is this: the largest habitable space on Earth, a volume of water so vast that every mountain range on every continent could be submerged within it and still leave room, is almost entirely unknown to us. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. We have sent humans to the moon 6 times. We have sent humans to the deepest point in the ocean twice. And on both occasions, what those people encountered in the darkness below 11 kilometers of water was not the barren, featureless void that the scientific consensus of the time had predicted. It was alive. Densely, extraordinarily, disturbingly alive. The deep ocean does not produce monsters in the way mythology produces monsters, through the accumulated fears and storytelling traditions of cultures trying to explain what they cannot see. The deep ocean produces monsters the way evolution produces everything, through pressure, time, and the absolute merciless logic of survival in conditions that by every reasonable biological expectation should support no life at all. The creatures down there are not metaphors. They are not the projections of frightened imaginations. They are real. They are documented. They are in some cases still alive at this moment. In the dark, at depths, your body would be crushed to paste before you could form a coherent thought about what you were seeing. This is not a story about what might be in the ocean. This is a story about what is already there, what it tells us about the nature of life itself, and why the more carefully scientists look into the deep, the more the deep looks back. Chapter 1. The Architecture of Darkness. To understand why the deep ocean produces the creatures it does, you first have to understand what the deep ocean actually is, because most people's mental model of it is wrong in ways that matter. The ocean is divided into zones defined by the penetration of sunlight. The epipelagic zone, the uppermost layer, extends to roughly 200 meters. This is the ocean of popular imagination, reefs, schools of fish, dolphins, the blue water of travel photography. Sunlight reaches it. Photosynthesis occurs. Life here operates on fundamentally the same energy budget as life on land. Everything ultimately traces back to the sun. Below 200 meters, the light begins to fail. By 1,000 meters, it is gone entirely. Below that threshold, no photosynthesis occurs. No sunlight reaches. The temperature drops to somewhere between 2 and 4 degrees Celsius and stays there, virtually constant, because the sun cannot touch it and never has. The pressure at 1,000 meters is approximately 100 atmospheres, 100 times the pressure at the surface. At 4,000 meters, it is 400 atmospheres. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, at nearly 11,000 meters, it exceeds 1,000 atmospheres. These are not conditions under which life should persist. Every biochemical process that sustains living organisms evolved over billions of years for conditions utterly unlike these. And yet, life not only persists in the deep ocean, but diversifies within it, producing forms so alien to surface biology that early naturalists who hauled them up in trawling nets genuinely struggled to classify them within existing frameworks. Some could not survive the journey to the surface. Deprived of the pressure that structured their physiology, they hemorrhaged, decompressed, fell apart in the collection buckets before anyone could get a clear look at what they had been. The ocean kept its specimens. Scientists kept the fragments. And from the fragments, an increasingly complete picture of an alternate biology began to emerge, one that suggests that the rules governing life on Earth are considerably more flexible than we had assumed. Chapter 2. Light in the Abyss. The first thing that should not exist in the deep ocean, according to any intuitive model of how ecosystems work, is light. And yet bioluminescence, the biological production of light, is not a rare curiosity in the deep ocean. It is the dominant sensory modality. Scientists estimate that somewhere between 76 and 80% of deep-sea organisms produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. In the absolute darkness below 1,000 meters, in a zone where no photon from the sun has ever penetrated, life has invented its own illumination, and it has deployed it with a sophistication that continues to confound researchers. The anglerfish is the creature most people associate with deep-sea bioluminescence, and the anglerfish is genuinely extraordinary. But it has become so culturally familiar that its actual biology is now routinely undersold. The female anglerfish, the large fang-toothed creature with the luminescent lure extending from her forehead, is only half of the story. The male anglerfish is tiny, drifting, jawless, physiologically incomplete in the sense that he possesses no digestive system capable of sustaining independent life for long. His entire biological purpose, the singular evolutionary drive encoded into every cell of his body, is to find a female before he starves. When he does, he bites into her skin and holds on. Over the following weeks and months, his body fuses with hers at the circulatory level. His eyes degenerate. His internal organs, with the exception of his reproductive system, atrophy and dissolve. He becomes, in the most literal biological sense, a part of her body, a reproductive appendage sustained by her blood, existing only to fertilize her eggs when she produces them. A single female anglerfish has been documented carrying 8 males simultaneously in various stages of this fusion. This is not a horror story. This is a reproductive strategy that evolved over millions of years because in an environment of absolute darkness, spanning millions of cubic kilometers of cold water, the probability of 2 sexually compatible individuals encountering each other more than once in a lifetime approaches 0. The anglerfish did not evolve monstrousness. It evolved efficiency. The monstrousness is a human interpretation applied from a safe distance to a solution that is in fact elegant if you are willing to set aside the instinctive revulsion long enough to examine it honestly. The bioluminescent lure works on the same principle. In the darkness, light means food. It has meant food for so long, for so many organisms, that the reflex toward light is effectively hardwired into deep-sea biology. The anglerfish exploits this reflex. She does not chase her prey. She becomes a signal, mimicking the behavior of the bioluminescent organisms her prey evolved to approach. And she waits with extraordinary patience for the approach to complete itself. She is not a predator in the conventional sense. She is a lie, patiently told, in the dark, for as long as it takes. Chapter 3. The Pressure Paradox. At 4,000 meters below the surface, the water pressure is sufficient to crush a human body in milliseconds. The nitrogen in the blood would not have time to bubble. The lungs would not have time to collapse. The process would be effectively instantaneous, which is perhaps the most merciful thing about it. And yet the creatures that live at this depth are not merely surviving the pressure. They are built for it, structured by it, dependent on it in ways that are only now beginning to be understood. The key is a molecule called trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO. It is a pisolate, a pressure-stabilizing compound that accumulates in the cells of deep-sea fish in concentrations proportional to the depth at which they live. Near the surface, fish have very little of it. At 2,000 meters, the concentrations are measurable. At the Hadal zone, the deepest trenches, they are so high that the fish would be chemically toxic if consumed by a surface-dwelling organism. The TMAO prevents the proteins in the cell from being crushed out of their functional shapes by the surrounding pressure. It is, in effect, a biological scaffolding that holds the machinery of life together under conditions that would otherwise destroy it. The snailfish, small, translucent, gelatinous, superficially unimpressive, holds the record for the deepest fish ever recorded. In 2023, a specimen was filmed at 8,236 meters in the Izu Ogasawara Trench, deeper than most submarines are rated to operate. It was not struggling. It was not in distress. It was feeding, moving through water at a pressure of roughly 800 atmospheres with the relaxed, unhurried manner of a creature that has been here, or somewhere very much like here, for longer than our species has been capable of contemplating the concept of depth. The snailfish looks like nothing, like a piece of wet tissue animated by accident, and it lives in conditions that would kill every other vertebrate on Earth within seconds. This is the pressure paradox of the deep ocean. The conditions that make it lethal to us are precisely the conditions that made it habitable for the organisms that evolved there. The pressure did not keep life out of the deep ocean. It invited a particular kind of life in, then spent millions of years refining it into something that cannot exist anywhere else. Remove a Hadal snailfish from its environment, reduce the pressure, raise the temperature even slightly, and it dies. It is not adapted to survive the deep. It is adapted to survive only the deep. It has nowhere else to go because it has become something that nowhere else can hold. Chapter 4. Chemosynthesis and the Reinvention of the Food Chain. In 1977, a research team operating the deep-sea submersible Alvin descended to the Galapagos Rift, a section of mid-ocean ridge on the floor of the Pacific. And they found something that required a significant revision of one of the most fundamental assumptions in biology. They found hydrothermal vents, cracks in the ocean floor through which superheated water, laden with hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals, vented from the geological activity below. The water emerging from these vents can reach temperatures of 400 degrees Celsius, and it does not boil only because of the pressure of the ocean column above it. Around these vents, in the absence of any sunlight, entirely disconnected from any food web that traced its energy back to photosynthesis, was a thriving ecosystem. Tube worms up to 2 meters in length, their red plumes extended into the chemical stream. Ghostly white crabs, clams the size of dinner plates, shrimp clustered so densely around the vent openings that they covered the rock in a living carpet. Every organism in this ecosystem existed on energy derived not from sunlight, but from the chemical oxidation of hydrogen sulfide, a process called chemosynthesis, performed by bacteria that lived within the tissues of the larger organisms in a symbiotic relationship that no one had previously imagined. The implications of this discovery extend considerably beyond marine biology. Before 1977, the definition of a habitable zone, in planetary science, in the search for extraterrestrial life, in virtually every discipline that concerned itself with the conditions necessary for biology, was effectively synonymous with access to sunlight. Life required photosynthesis. Photosynthesis required a star. A world without a star was, by definition, a dead world. The Galapagos Rift hydrothermal vents invalidated this assumption completely. They demonstrated that life is capable of bootstrapping an entire self-sustaining food web from geological heat and chemical energy alone, in total darkness, under conditions previously classified as incompatible with biology. Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, is believed to possess a liquid water ocean beneath its icy surface, heated by tidal forces from Jupiter's gravitational influence. It receives virtually no sunlight. By the pre-1977 framework, it was a dead world. By the post-1977 framework, it is one of the most compelling candidates for extraterrestrial life in the solar system. A discovery made at the bottom of our own ocean rewrote the map of where life is possible in the universe. And it did so because someone descended far enough into the dark to look. Chapter 5. The creatures that should not work, the giant squid. Architeuthis dux was considered a myth for most of recorded human history. Sailors who claimed to have seen tentacles the thickness of a man's torso emerging from the water were filed alongside accounts of sea serpents and mermaids in the general category of maritime hallucination. Ancient maps marked the deep ocean with creatures of impossible scale and disposition. Scientists of the 18th and 19th centuries were largely confident that the deep ocean was too hostile an environment to support organisms of significant size. Then the carcasses started washing ashore. The first confirmed giant squid specimens were documented in the mid-19th century, physical evidence that could not be dismissed. Mantles of 2 meters or more, tentacles extending beyond 10. Eyes the size of dinner plates. The largest eyes of any animal on Earth evolved to gather the absolute maximum of the bioluminescent light available in the deep. The eyes of the giant squid are so large, their light-gathering capacity so extreme, that they can detect the bioluminescent glow of a sperm whale approaching from over 100 meters away in zero ambient light. The squid uses this detection not to flee, necessarily, but to prepare. The sperm whale is the giant squid's primary predator. The sucker scars found on sperm whale skin, circular wounds the diameter of a human fist, and the squid beaks recovered from sperm whale stomachs, thousands of them in some individuals, tell the story of a predator-prey relationship played out in total darkness, at depth, between two of the largest animals that have ever existed, in a space no human being has ever directly witnessed. The first living giant squid was not photographed until 2004. The first footage of one in its natural habitat was not captured until 2012. For the entirety of human civilization, from the first sailors to the first submarines, one of the largest animals on Earth was conducting its entire existence, hunting, growing, reproducing, dying, in a space we could not reach and could not see. If we had not eventually reached it, we would still be classifying the giant squid as a legend, which raises an obvious and uncomfortable question about what else we are currently classifying as a legend. Chapter 6. The Midnight Zone and the Problem of Scale. Below 4,000 meters, in what oceanographers call the Hadal Zone, named for Hades, the Greek underworld, which says something about the emotional register in which the scientists who named it were operating. The ocean floor is not flat. It is fractured into a network of trenches, the deepest geological structures on the planet, most of them unmapped at any useful resolution, most of them visited fewer times than the surface of the moon. The Mariana Trench alone contains a volume of water greater than the combined volume of every lake in North America. The Challenger Deep, its lowest point, is deep enough to submerge Mount Everest with over 2 kilometers of water remaining above the summit. It has been visited by crewed submersibles 3 times. 3. In the entire history of human deep-sea exploration. The organisms recovered from Hadal sediment samples include amphipods, shrimp-like crustaceans, of a size that defies expectations for animals at that depth, where food is scarce and organic material arrives only as the compressed, degraded remains of organisms that died in the water column far above. They call this phenomenon abyssal gigantism, and it is not fully understood. Something about the combination of cold, pressure, and low metabolic demand produces, in certain lineages, organisms that grow far larger than their shallow water relatives. The Japanese spider crab, whose legs span up to 4 meters. The giant isopod, a deep-sea crustacean that can reach 0.5 meter in length. A direct relative of the pillbug you would find under a garden stone, scaled up to a size that sits in the uncanny valley between familiar and incomprehensible. We do not know why. The leading hypotheses involve metabolic rate, oxygen availability, and the absence of certain predation pressures, but none of them fully accounts for the distribution and degree of the phenomenon. Abyssal gigantism is a real, documented, repeatable observation for which science currently possesses an incomplete explanation. In the deepest, least explored part of the largest habitat on Earth, things grow inexplicably large. And we have explored, at useful resolution, perhaps 5% of it. There is a philosophical dimension to the deep ocean that tends to get lost in the accumulation of biological detail, and it is worth pausing on. Every culture in human history has located its monsters at the boundary of the known world. In the ocean, because the ocean was the original boundary of the known world. Ancient cartographers marked their maps, "Here be dragons," at the edges of charted territory, not because they believed in dragons, but because the phrase accurately communicated what the blank space beyond the edge of knowledge actually meant. We do not know what is there, we suspect it is dangerous, and we do not yet have the means to find out. The deep ocean is still that blank space. It is the last genuinely unexplored territory on Earth, and what we have found in the small fraction of it we have managed to examine is consistently stranger, more complex, and more biologically inventive than we predicted before we looked. Every expedition returns with new species. Every sediment sample from the Hadal Zone contains organisms that were not previously known to science. The rate of discovery in deep-sea biology has not slowed as the field has matured, as it typically does in established scientific disciplines. It has accelerated because the tools are improving and the territory is vast, and because the ocean, unlike most research subjects, seems to have an effectively inexhaustible capacity to produce things that do not fit existing categories. What this means, in the broadest possible sense, is that the monster-making capacity of the deep ocean is not a relic of ancient ignorance. It is an ongoing, active, scientifically documented phenomenon. The ocean is not a place where monsters used to be imagined. It is a place where monsters, in the precise sense of organisms that exceed and challenge and occasionally overturn our understanding of what biology is capable of, are continuously and literally being discovered. The only thing separating the deep ocean from the mythological abyss of human imagination is that the deep ocean's contents are real, confirmed, and on record, and we have looked at less than 5% of it. When the Alvin submersible descended to the Galapagos Rift in 1977, and the scientists on board watched the hydrothermal vent ecosystem come into focus through their portholes, one of them is reported to have said that what they were looking at could not exist. And then, immediately after, that it clearly did. That gap between the expected and the actual moment in which reality turns out to be considerably stranger than the model that was built to describe it, is the gap in which the deep ocean has always operated. It has been producing organisms that should not exist by every prior framework for what existence requires, for longer than our species has been capable of building frameworks. The monsters in the deep are not waiting for us. They are not aware of us in any meaningful sense. They do not care whether we descend to document them or remain at the surface telling stories about what might be below. They were here before the first human looked at the ocean and felt afraid of what it contained, and the overwhelming likelihood is that they will be here after the last one. The darkness down there is not dramatic. It is not hostile. It simply is, permanent and patient, and in that darkness, at pressures that would end a human life before a human mind could process what was happening, something is moving, something is feeding, something is producing light in the dark for reasons that are still being argued about in the scientific literature. And somewhere in the 95% of the ocean floor that no instrument has ever mapped at resolution, something almost certainly exists for which we do not yet have a name, a category, or a framework, and which will require us to build all three when we finally find it. The ocean does not keep its secrets because it is hiding them. It keeps them because we have not yet gone deep enough to take them.